Take two. We're back 2 months later. Very exciting. It's a great time to be back. And what better time than with the national championship yesterday, college football, Alabama, 7 of the last 11 or something like that. Pretty insulting. NFL playoffs, full swing. So we're going to talk about it all on Courtside Idiots this week. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be back. We are always going to start with if I were a betting man, because now more than ever, we really are betting men collectively. Not really Howard and Will, but still, we bet now.
Man of the cloth.
We take interest in it.
You dabble. You dabble.
Yeah.
You dabble. And we've got the NFL playoffs, and they've already released the lines for next week. So I'm picking all 4 games. I want to hear what you guys think. I feel good. I got my best bet from every game. First game of the weekend, Rams-Packers. I'm going to take Rams +7. If I were a betting man, which I am, I would be taking Rams +7. What are you guys' thoughts? Rams-Packers.
No, I don't like that one. I like Packers -7. The Rams quarterbacks are just depleted and injured and hurt.
And they need quarterbacks last week.
That's true. And their defense played astounding. Jalen Ramsey's locking up. But, I mean, guys, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers here. And might be one of the best Packers teams that we've seen, man. I like the Packers -7.
I mean, Russell Wilson ain't no joke either. And, I mean, he looked abysmal last week versus that Ramsey. Although
he's been in the playoffs.
Although isn't Aaron Donald hurt? Didn't he get hurt at the end of the
Yeah, that's actually.
He said he should play, no problem.
Okay,
well, their injuries are actually why I'm going to pick the Packers +7 or -7. They're really banged up. They have to go to Green Bay. It's going to be cold and Green Bay. It's just, I mean, it's Wisconsin.
No way.
It's Wisconsin in the January. Like, it's going to be cold.
Ruby Science is kind of swaying me a little bit here, but I'm still gonna go Rams +7. I don't know. I think their defense is incredibly legit, and I don't necessarily think they're gonna beat the Packers. But as long as the Rams can put 17 points on the scoreboard, you're asking a team to put 24 on that Rams defense, which not many teams have done this year. I'm riding with that. I mean, I don't think the Rams are gonna win.
Playoffs. Yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, confidence is what matters, man. Confidence.
What I will say though is I see a little over in that game at like 45.5. That might be interesting. That might be over.
I mean, I'm hitting under like crazy.
I'm gonna stay from that game.
That's fair. All right. Well, we got 3 more games. So next one, I am gonna go with an over. Ravens versus Bills. The over's 50. I could definitely see an over hitting them for Ravens Bills. I think those 2 offenses are looking really good, and the Ravens run defense is amazing, which is what killed the Titans. But Bills never run the ball anyway, so I'm kind of into that over.
Yeah,
I mean, they did just sign Devontae Freeman.
I mean, the only time they run is with Josh Allen on a zone read. That was their run game last week. So yeah, I would definitely take over. The way Josh Allen's playing and Lamar's playing right now. Yeah, that's an easy over.
That's what I'm saying.
Put easy games. So, I mean,
consider the weather though. I think we need to consider the weather though.
No, we should. It'll be cold. There might be a little bit of snow. Maybe.
Lamar thrives in the snow.
He played in Louisville. I ain't warm in the towards the late November games, but
I know
more pretty cold.
Colts also ran the ball very well against that Bills defense last week. I'm saying that over's hitting. All right.
Yes.
Game number 3. I got Browns +10 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now hear me out. If their O-line can't play, because I know there's a chance Conklin can't play and stuff, and Batonio might still be out with COVID, I don't feel as good about that. But the Chiefs do not blow anyone out. Now, I'm not ever going to pick the Browns against the Chiefs. Andy Reid never loses after buys. But I definitely think they can at least keep the game respectable. Run defense is the worst part of their game. Browns are going to run for 300 yards. I think it's going to be a close game. Chiefs are going to win. I got Browns covering +10.
I like that. I'll go into that with you. Maybe we'll split that bet. I don't know. But no, the Chiefs never really blow anyone out if you think about it. I mean, But let's think about the Falcons game. Everyone thought the Chiefs were going to absolutely obliterate the Falcons at home, but Falcons kept it close because the Falcons are the best next team in the NFL. I mean, it's just true.
All right.
So,
well,
The one thing I will say is the Browns won their Super Bowl last week. I mean, like that was their biggest game. They haven't been to playoffs in 20 years. That was their big game, and I think it was really easy to get up for that game. And obviously it's the playoffs, but there's still just so much like problems with not having your head coach for the last game. I feel like it should be a little too discombobulated for that.
Yeah.
Especially going up against the Chiefs.
Maybe, but he'll be back.
I mean,
He will be back.
He'll
Yes.
be back.
it's just really hard to get up and go play the defending champs in a divisional playoff round. I just don't know how the boys won't be motivated, honestly.
Well,
but
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it. They're on they're on the downward trend of the high of winning their first playoff game in like forever. I get it. Like 1994, right? I don't know. I like it. I mean, the Chiefs haven't like just demolished their way down the stretch. Like I think the Falcons game, obviously the last week versus Chargers, I mean it's whatever. But like the Falcons game, and also isn't their right tackle out right now? I think that's also another point to point out. The O-line isn't as good as it's usually been.
Jack Conklin, I said that. No, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the Browns are just hot as a pistol right now and playing confident, which I think is such a key in the playoffs. That's why you get like, for example, throwing a nod at Ruby, you get Giants runs early with Eli Manning back in the day.
So good.
True.
We love that.
All right, I like it. Browns plus 10. We're riding. Last game of the weekend, Sunday night. I got Bucks plus 3 against the Saints. Now, this one is really interesting. The Saints defense is awesome. The Saints have given us no reason to think that they can't beat the Bucks a third time. Teams don't lose to teams 3 times in 1 year in the NFL. It just doesn't happen. So I really think Bucks, they were embarrassed on Sunday night against the Saints last time they played. I think they're coming out. They're playing hot. Devin White's going to be back this week, which would be huge to stop Kamara. I'm loving Bucks plus 3.
Give me Bucks.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
not
Right
to say that too.
Give me the money line. They're gonna cover. Devin White come back. Be good to have him back. Like Evans. Unbelievable that he was. Breeze Brady. I mean, we all want to see it. I like the plus, especially because like you said, losing the third time. Brady loses Breeze the third time. Brady's gonna beat Breeze and put him.
Oh,
Yeah, I love
jeez.
that.
Golly.
Can we just talk about the terminology? We've really grown talking about bets and stuff. We're in a lot of terms that we weren't really familiar with as a group. I just want to tip our hat to us. There's a lot of good betting terms going on. I wouldn't understand.
This podcast has made us smarter for sure.
As a man at cloth, I wouldn't understand these, but no, I think I'm taking Saints because I feel like that was the same idea going into the last time they played. That they got embarrassed week 1 and then they got embarrassed again later in the year. I just think the Saints are rolling right now. So, and they struggled versus the Redskins. So I mean, yeah.
Hey, Taylor Heineke's a national treasure.
Sorry.
Hey, man of the cloth. How about you stop using slurs on the podcast?
Hey, listen. I'm I aspire after Billy Graham.
You look out.
I'll have to bleep it out.
Yeah, please bleep that out. To my future employers, I have never. I do not believe I respect Native Americans' rights. As a Florida State fan, I feel like I respect. Have mass respect. Anyway, no, yeah, struggling versus the Reds. Watch the football team. Yeah. Listen.
All right, we're gonna pivot before we hear you say the R word again on air. So we're going to college football first. I think we have to. It's an obligation. National championship was yesterday. Alabama is freaking awesome, and they gave no reason to think that they were not one of the best teams to ever do it. But before we get into our all-time GOAT college football teams, what do you guys take away from the national championship? I mean, obviously, we got some pretty obvious ones. DeVonta Smith, baddest dude on the planet. What did you guys see last night?
I mean, can we just respect? I mean, let's just talk about Nick Saban being the best college football coach of all time. And this can be like a minute into our thing, but I mean, 7 chips, 2 different schools, by the way. Everyone forgets the first one at LSU. And I mean, he's just a plain straight up winner. He fills the role in every sort of occupation you need to be an elite head coach. You know, he gets every recruit. He calls the right plays, and then he also crushes out some reporters sometimes, which is really funny. And you know, he's just a championship winning coach. He's dominant in his performance. I think the only really close championship was against UGA. And you know, you expect Alabama to win every time. Every time they out of the SEC, we expect them to win the championship every year. And I mean, they're just consistent. It gets boring, but it's, I mean, you can't hate on their consistency in winning. So we definitely saw that last night for sure.
I'll have to like it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go. But the dude, the receivers are. Him in the end. I liked how he played last night. He got a couple playing. He needs to learn how to slide. Banged up, but also. I feel like
I'm with you, Harb. I think Mac Jones, I think the dude put up probably statistically even a better year than Burrow had last year, which is amazing. He did it in 2 less games. But I still think public perception's kind of been that Mac Jones has just been riding the coattails of all the talented players on his team all season, right? He didn't win the Heisman. Devontae won the Heisman, right? And Najee Harris, absolute stud. Don't get me wrong. Jalen Waddle, absolute stud. But last night, with Waddle barely playing, he took three snaps or 4 snaps or whatever. Devontae Smith got hurt at halftime. Didn't matter. Mac Jones is good without them. I know he's better with them, and a lot of the yards after catch are a lot of his yards, but Mac Jones didn't ride coattails this season. He is, in his own right, a really talented quarterback. He's one of the best deep ball passers I've seen in college in a really long time. And I'm with you, Harb. I think someone like the Steelers or the Patriots or something is going to take him in the second half of the first round, and they're going to have themselves a franchise quarterback. I really like Mac Jones.
Wow.
Broke Colt McCoy's completion percentage record.
Wow. Yeah.
Colt McCoy, the GOAT.
You know, a lot of thoughts on this game. I think it was, a weird offensive powerhouse game, especially for Alabama, obviously. But it just really fit how weird this year has been for college football with everything with the pandemic and stuff. I felt it was a very fitting game because it was a weird game. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just I don't know. And then, obviously, this unfortunately, a lot of injuries. I don't know why they dressed Waddle at all for that game. That there was no point, honestly. Just someone should have told him, please don't dress. There's no point in trying to further injure yourself. And obviously, Trey Sermon getting hurt the first play of the game. That sucks for Ohio State. That dude has been a beast. I still don't know how Oklahoma let that man go, but that dude is
or how Ohio State made him the backup for the first 6 games of the season.
Seriously, Ryan Day. Anyway, but that man literally, just because of his play, is the last handful of games is gonna get himself an NFL draft pick because of that, because he's played out of his mind. So it sucked to see him go down. Honestly, the most coolest thing about that whole game, the one I pointed out, is just the whole Landon Dickerson letting him go out for the last play of the game. Just with everything that happened to him as a Florida State fan, seeing that man turn into an absolute beast at Alabama as he transferred, and then getting the unfortunate injury this year, seeing him get a tip of the hat was just really cool to see. You don't see the big man getting a lot of attention like that a lot in sports, especially. I thought that was really cool in the game. But yeah, I don't know. I think another question for everyone else who has shared their thoughts. I mean, can any team compete better? I guess Florida competed better, but you think any other team could compete better with Alabama this year? Just anybody you think of?
I mean,
Notre Dame competed better.
No, they didn't.
They didn't.
Same
No.
Clemson, but they got beat by Ohio State. I mean, you just
Bad. Got beat bad. Let's not just beat. They got embarrassed.
and then Ohio State.
I would argue.
Oh, let's during the season.
That's true. That's true.
I would argue Clemson would have been a better matchup with Alabama. I know Ohio State blew them out of the water, and I still think Clemson would have lost somewhat handily. I think Clemson would have been a better matchup in terms of championship experience for a lot of the guys that are still on the roster. And
Good point.
Trevor Lawrence can do a lot of things. As good as Justin Fields has been, he was clearly hurt yesterday.
Yeah.
He did not look like
a lot
himself.
of injuries.
And I think Trevor Lawrence would have been a difference maker for them. Most importantly, Clemson's defense, it's not a secret, is much, much better than Ohio State's defense. Ohio State's defense played great against Clemson because their D-line dominated, but also their entire D-line was missing last night against Alabama. So I think Clemson might have been able to compete a little bit better, but no, Alabama they were LSU this year, right? They were just that much better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's a weird year, man. Weird game.
Yeah, definitely a weird year for college football, and just
Here's the thing. I just want to say this real quick. That not to bash, because I think we all love college football on this podcast, but I mean, it is getting pretty boring. I mean, guys, we're watching the same teams win the national, getting the playoffs every year. And we had that one with LSU last year that won the ship because they had Burrow and one of the better teams to play in the last 5-10 years of college football. But I mean, it's just the same powerhouses, same people winning the conference. Of course, there's some people like Notre Dame, Georgia that sneak into the college football playoff. Oregon made it the first year, but I mean, it's getting stagnant, guys. I mean, all these recruits are going to these top schools, and I mean, how is there one team that you think can kind of break that wall to get maybe the next LSU, and maybe a contender for next year, maybe in the next couple years?
I mean, as far as like a team that could break through, I think it's got to be maybe not necessarily like one of those, like obviously it's not gonna be one of the powerhouse that breaks through, but like if you had like an LSU or like a Oregon, or I'm not saying based on their current rosters or anything, I'm just saying like teams that have kind of had experience and kind of have that like bigger school and maybe some other factors that help like recruit could kind of like help that to like break through, help those teams to break through. And I think that honestly, that's kind of why they're looking at maybe changing some things up in the next couple of years. Like I think, have been like looking at college football itself, like the FBS breaking off from the NCAA. They've looked at like an 18. Yeah, that actually came out like a couple days ago. The
NCAA did shut it down today, though. Worth noting.
Well, of course, the NCAA is not the biggest fan of the thing that takes away their most money.
And that is not their most money.
Their second most behind March Madness.
NCAA trash.
Okay.
It's all right.
I don't know. I think it's a bad year. I mean, it's just like a hard year because college football is just built around the theatrics, the fans, the crowd.
for sure.
You just couldn't have that this year, and I think that really hurt it a lot. And I mean, it's a hard year now. No one had a spring ball like us. It's really hard to compare these of any other year in terms of like where's college football heading, But
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm not really worried about college football, though. I mean, like at the end of the day, like on Saturdays, you know what? We're still watching college football, and yeah, the same teams are up there.
Yeah.
But I still get excited. The championship yesterday was the most bet on college football game in history. People are still watching. People are still interested. So I don't know. I would like to ask Will, I guess, if you are getting bored with college football, what could you possibly do to maybe change the fact that the same teams keep winning? Because you can't tell them not to go recruit the best players, and you can't tell them to not have great coaches.
Oh, of course. I mean, you asked what I can do. I can't do anything. I think.
No. What can anyone do?
I mean, it's just I don't know what they can do, to be honest. It all starts with recruiting, but those top schools are getting those guys. I mean, what brings in recruits? You could say facilities, uniforms, stuff like that, college coaching. that's why we always see those assistants like like from Alabama going other places. Steve Sarkisian going to Texas. We always see those assistants go other places because they pull from powerhouses, and those powerhouse assistants need to be trying to make their programs powerhouses. But in the last 5 or 6 years, there hasn't really been much breakthrough in that. Ed Orgeron did it with LSU, but that's going to keep happening. I don't know. That's actually a really good question because I never thought about what teams really can do. Coaching changes and recruits and building up facilities and whatever attract recruits, you just need to keep improving that, I guess. But until someone can really or find that dark horse recruit that was a 2-star and all of a sudden he's just amazing. I don't know. That's actually a really good question. Yeah, but
it's tough. I think the thing that you can look at too is like we've had different teams have different times where they've been powerhouses and then they're not anymore, right? Like Nebraska has not been relevant in a long freaking time, but for a long time they were the best program in football. Miami, they've been pretty much dead since the early 2000s, but for a good 20 years there, every other year they were dominant. So, I think it's unfortunately, I don't know if college football is getting boring. I think college football it moves slowly relative to other sports because you don't necessarily have free agency, right? You don't have cap limits. You don't have guys leaving. College football, yes, you have players leaving every 4 years, but recruiting is so much built on momentum. I think recruiting is completely momentum, and once you get that ball rolling, great, you can start getting that talent in there. But until you get that ball rolling, and it takes someone like you said, Will. It takes a Sark coming from Alabama who's seen how it's done, or Kirby Smart. Georgia's recruiting since Kirby got there is a 360 or 180, I guess, from when Mark Richt was the coach. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is just it moves slower in college ball. Yeah, 180.
I think there are two kind of things you can look at too in terms of like how maybe like the college football like playoff format could change and just like having different teams kind of like work their way in. Like if you look at last year, I'm just going to use the example of Baylor just because I think it kind of works here. Is just if you look at Matt Rule started took over in 2017 and they were 1-11, and then in 2 years they were 11-3, I think, or something like that. And that sort of change can happen just with the addition of a good coach kind of coming from, not even like a big school. Like it was Temple. It wasn't like one of these powerhouses, and he has some experience in the NFL before that. But I think that it's just kind of finding the right guy for the program and moving from there in terms of like what the programs can do. As far as what the like NCAA and like the college football playoffs and stuff could do, I think that an 8-team playoff is something that could be interesting to see if it would change things. I don't know. Like obviously Alabama this season, I don't think that they were going to lose to anybody. But, if they have to play one more game, and if they have to play against a team who they kind of underestimate, there's a chance that they get caught by someone, and then it changes the whole trajectory.
Ruby, I think you're completely on with that one, dude. I really do. We've talked about this, I think, before, Ruby and I have privately, but the top 6 recruiting classes for next season are the 6 teams who have won playoff games. And so I think if you really want to change how recruiting goes and getting guys to go to other programs, if you can expand to 8 teams where now, hey, Cincinnati this year, they would have made the playoffs if it was an 8-team playoff. And so you can tell guys, hey, you can go to Cincinnati and you can make a playoff. Like I think that helps a lot in kind of breaking up recruiting and keeping guys closer to home. And right now, I think recruits are all like, oh, I want to go play on this national stage. I want my exposure for the NFL. I want to go chase a natty, whatever. And so they know realistically that there's maybe only 6 or 7 schools where if that's their goal, that's where they want to go. And so I think, Ruby, you're right onto it. If you can go to 8 or 16, I think 16 is too much. But if you can go to 8, I even think that starts giving a chance to those other schools where right now schools in recruiting might not be able to go. Cincinnati can't go tell a recruit, hey, we're going to be competing for a playoff right now with 4 teams. But if it goes to 8 teams, you bet your buns that Luke Fickell's on the recruiting trail and he's saying, hey, we would have been in the playoff last year. We can do this. Come be a part of something great here.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that kind of would help that is a system similar to almost how the NFL does it, where they have the divisions and then I think that like if you did the Power 5 conferences and had the Power 5 conference champions, 90% of the time, those are the teams that already would be in or would be like outside looking in. So I think that if you do that and then like the 3 at-large teams, I think that probably works a little bit better, and it allows for conference championships to matter a little bit more and some stuff like that.
I think that would also save the Pac-12 because currently we should make the argument that the American Athletic is the 5th Power 5 and not the Pac-12. But if you could guarantee the Pac-12 a playoff spot, I think that really helps.
What I was gonna say. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say when it comes to like adding changes in college football, and I think why there's that sort of feeling is because there was a lot of West Coast talent represented last night and throughout the playoffs, but not for West Coast teams. I think that's a big part of killing it, just because you can recruit anybody in the nation now. I think that's a big part of it. And I also think secondly is, I don't know, other than like the rare exceptions like Kirby and stuff, like how many people from Saban's tree have been like solid? Heck, Jimbo and Kirby, right? I can't think of any that are like bingo, like great elite Saban type coaches from Saban tree.
Yeah, maybe not. The way Saban's handled stuff has changed a lot. Now he's been going after these reclamation projects, right? Like Lane Kiffin was a reclamation project, and Sark was a reclamation project, and next I think he's going to probably bring in a Bill O'Brien or an Adam Gase or something and reinvigorate their career. So I think he's kind of changed a lot in how he treats his coordinators and how he hires his coordinators. But I think there is credit to you in that. But at the end of the day, I think it's as the coaches you learn under is important. Like that's definitely important. I think coaching trees are very valid. Like there are some guys who are just better recruiters, and that's not necessarily going to be like Kirby is just a charismatic guy that is a good recruiter. He was a good recruiter when he got to Alabama, and then he got to be a great coach from Nick Saban. But I think that's a completely different skill set that unfortunately, there's only so many guys out there that have that skill set. And so those are the coaches that are getting the big recruits. I think you look at Oregon right now.
Yeah, I mean,
our head coach, I forget his name right now, but he's great.
Mario Cristobal.
Yes, Mario Cristobal. And he's charismatic, and he's got great recruits coming in again. And I think Oregon, they're really gonna be actually competitive moving forward, and that's as much as you can ask for right now to be moving forward if you're not Ohio State, Clemson, or Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, money also helps. I mean, that's the big thing. How much money putting into this. And I mean, that's why Oregon does well. I mean, it's just about, now the kind of buzzword is just finding, like, I think culture builders kind of the coach, kind of fall in as more of the Dabo Sweeney train of things. Like guys like Matt Campbell, like a guy like that. Like, I think it's just trying to
love Matt Campbell.
Culture builder. Yeah, the guy that's just like, I'm, investing. And I think that's hard to find in modern college football because it's such a business now. Everyone wants to climb the ladder, they're waiting to get the big job. I don't know. It's there's a lot. I think there's a lot of factors to it. But yeah, expand the playoffs, obviously. I mean, as a fan, I would love that for sure. But I think it's just naturally going to lead to more expansion. Like obviously, when the 8th comes out, the 9th team's going to feel like they're getting screwed over, right? And they'll have an argument, and then they're just going to expand it more, which I'm fine with. I mean, as a fan, more playoffs.
The one thing I will say about like the more and more expansion, I think that college football is different than other sports in that the gap between Alabama and I don't even know who was 9th this year. Georgia. Okay. The gap between Alabama and Georgia this season was a big one. Like I don't think that there's like enough there to really like make the case where there is now if you have teams like UCF from a couple of years ago. Oh, I mean, I don't think that necessarily like that, but like I think the conference champions having those solidified in the playoffs, I think there's less of a wiggle room between those 3 spots. And I mean, I do think like if you look at teams like UCF from a couple years ago, when they end up beating the team that beat the two like teams that were playing the college football national championship, like I think that there's more of a case to be made for teams like that than someone like a 3-loss Georgia team or something like that.
I had 2-loss Georgia team, but I mean, I think
I was picking 3-loss just out of I wasn't this season.
I think the problem is like if you go to 8 teams, to Howard's credit, like people are going to ask for more. And Ruby, you're right. Like the gap between Alabama and Georgia was pretty big this year. We watched it unfold in a 20-point win for Alabama, but the gap between Cincinnati and Georgia clearly was not big. Can Georgia won that bowl game, and they won by only a couple points. So I think the argument's then going to be the person at 9 is going to be mad that they're not in at 8, and it's going to be the situation where Baylor and TCU were left out way back when at 5 and 6, and they want to be in, even though were they better than the number 1 team in the country? Probably not, but you still want to be included for the reasons like I said, right? Like things like recruiting. But anyway, that was great. That definitely spiraled from the national championship conversation. But I know confidently we can take away from that game that the Alabama team this year was one of the most dominant teams in the history of the sport. And on that note, I want to hear it, guys. Jacob Harb, who is the greatest of all time college football team?
After watching
Oh,
2021 Bama, the best,
Wow.
That, folks, is what we like to call recency bias.
best team. Sorry about but receivers. But game this year. History. So I'm going with Ben.
Bulletproof argument.
Part of the,
Bulletproof.
I don't hate your take as much as our fellow friends. I don't think they're the best team to ever play. I think they're the best offense to ever play.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone really has an argument against that. I mean, LSU from last year's the other one, but if you look at offensive efficiency, points per game, margin of victory, all that, Alabama does trump last year's LSU team. And you're right, they played an all LSU slate. There were no, I love Georgia Southern, Howard, that's where you go, but there were no Georgia Southerns on Alabama's schedule. Agreed. You guys were down a lot of players, and it was first week of the season. But all I'm saying is there were none of those games on Alabama's schedule this year, right? Well, did they play Vanderbilt? If they did, then there was one of those games on the schedule. But
right.
I like your take with the best offense. I don't know if it's the best team, but Jacob Howard, what are your thoughts? You seem to disagree.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think this is the type of thing that, like, obviously, if I look at this on paper, I go, you're right. Like, obviously undefeated. I mean, the offensive numbers are ridiculous beyond compare. But again, I think context on the year matters, right? No spring ball. And then you add in, like, there's no fans at this game. And offenses ran rampant this year, no matter the team almost, especially in the SEC, which I think that plays part in it for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much into crowd. And it was a down year, I think, for SEC talent wise. I mean, Georgia was kind of like trying to figure out a quarterback situation. They threw out freaking Bennett out there. I mean, I don't know. I just think, like, context of the year mattered for me, and I think it was a kind of a down year, and then add just with no fans and just the year. I think the 10-game slate at City is pretty fair because they're right. There wasn't a Georgia Southern, I would argue better than like playing Vanderbilt, but not here or there. But yeah, I don't know. I just think like context matters on the year, and I think it was a down year for the SEC. It was a down year for most conferences, but especially ACC. So I'm not like throwing stones or anything, but I don't know. I think that's some fair criticism. I don't think I'm like totally off base with that.
So who's the GOAT?
What was that?
So who's the GOAT?
Dude, I think the easy answer, right, is 2001 Miami team. I think like that's
actually
like
the correct answer, not the easy answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
No.
I mean, I just don't know. You're gonna say Ken Dorsey is really the quarterback of the greatest team ever?
Yes, I am. It's because of all the other players on the team. Actually, while you've set this up for me, allow childhood Miami fan to spill. They only won one game by single digits the entire season on the road at the number 14 team in the country. They won by 2. They were 12-0. They were 5-0 against top 25 teams. Their average margin of victory was 33 points, which is considerably higher than Alabama's team this year and LSU teams last year. On that team, yes, Ken Dorsey was the quarterback. He also won the trophy for quarterback of the year that year, but not a great pro player, admittedly. Great college player, however. Also on the team, pro players: Willis McGahee, Clinton Portis, Frank Gore, Andre Johnson, Brian McKinney, Winslow Jr., Jeremy Shockey, Antrell Roll, Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, Jonathan Vilma, Vince Wilfork. I mean, golly, you can keep going on. They had 6 first-team All-Americans on that roster, 17 first-round picks in the NFL, 38 guys drafted, and 43 Pro Bowls in the league. In terms of just sheer talent, also that 43 Pro Bowlers cut short because Sean Taylor, obviously, rest in peace, was only 24 years old when he passed away. In terms of sheer talent, that Miami team is the most talented team that's ever played, and it showed on the field. I mean, they were beating ranked teams by over 50 points. So, 2001 Miami Hurricanes, GOAT college football team. Howard, go ahead.
I got you. I'll add to it. I got a little stats to help with this argument. Their defense allowed 9.8 points a game on average, and beat 5 top 15 opponents by the margin of 236-72. So, yeah,
dominant.
It's a hard case to beat. I'm a Florida State fan. So I feel like that speaks volumes.
30 on their head.
I don't know.
They'd hang 40 on that Bama defense, brother.
And Dorsey slinging the ball.
Hey, Ken Dorsey, he was a great college player. He's a good coach. You know who he is right now? Do you, Ruby? This is a Ruby question. What's Ken Dorsey doing right now?
Who is Ken Dorsey?
Ken Dorsey is the quarterback coach for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
I just love the Buffalo Bills so much.
Baby.
Nobody circles the line like the Buffalo Bills. It doesn't happen.
My answer, I was going to say my honorable mention is the 2019 LSU Tigers, because I picked teams from my era. Like, I'm not going to pick teams I never saw play. 2001 Miami barely fits in. Obviously, I was 3. But I don't know. They ran dominant through a tough SEC. Like, there was high talent in the SEC last year, and they ran through it pretty handily, I might add. Like, they beat people. And granted, their defense wasn't name, but that offense, I argue, is the best offense I've ever seen due to it not being a COVID year. It was a full, just normal year. And Joe Brady's the best ever head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Thank you. Please. Please.
All right. Is it me?
Rob, knock yourself out.
All right. I'm going to go super homer pick, but I don't care. It was the best team I ever saw play. Is 2013 Florida State Seminoles. You can all you want. They had average margin of victory, which was 6 points more than the 2001 Miami team. Their
average margin of victory was 39 points a game.
39.5 points a game. They scored They scored more than 40 points in 12 of their games. They also set the record for the biggest defeat of a top 25 team when they beat the Maryland Tarpons 63-0.
Yeah, the Terrapins.
I mean, look, yeah, but it's a ranked team, and they lost 63-0. They beat Clemson that year by it was 51-14. They had 3 receivers either at or right around 1,000 yards receiving. And Kenny Shaw, Rashad Green, and Kelvin Benjamin. Their defense allowed 156 yards per game and an average of 1 touchdown. So I feel like that's pretty decent. And yeah, they dominated everyone they played. They had a worse schedule than some of the other teams on this list, but I mean, they went up against a really good Auburn team and, won in one of the more exciting national championships I've ever seen. So that's the...
Unbiased. He sold me. Totally unbiased. He sold me. I'm in.
All right. So real quick, I just
They also set the single season scoring record with 723 points.
I did a little investigation though. The Maryland win, very impressive. Don't get me wrong at all. Their win against Clemson, very impressive. The 2001 Miami team, Troy State was the only game that they played against a bad, like their non-conference slate that year was Penn State back in Joe Paterno days. Very good team. They played Florida State out of conference because they're in the Big East back then. They played, who was ranked, by the way, number 13. Number 11, Washington was out of conference. And number 4, Nebraska. Yes, talking about Miami. If you look at Florida State, Sorry. We're talking about Miami. We look at Florida State, 2013. A big part of their margin of victory was that they won by 66 points in a game. 80-14 against Idaho. They also played Nevada, won 62-7, and Bethune-Cookman, who was not even in FBS at that time, still is not. They won 54-6. So I think the numbers a little inflated there, but yes, you're right. I should have given them a little more credit. I'm just saying, not as good. 2001 Miami Hurricanes.
I mean, they beat Duke in the ACC championship game, 45-7.
Did you say Duke was in the ACC championship game though?
Duke.
Yeah, that point.
Down here for the ACC.
Year, all right.
Duke. It was Duke. That's my best team ever. Duke,
I think the only argument, Oh, that hit. What's yours?
I'm kidding.
I mean, like, go on.
Can I go?
Come on, I want your wills.
Go.
Thank you.
No.
First of all, I do think it's the 2001 Miami team. Don't get me wrong. I was about to read off the lineup just like Ryan did. I mean, they're just dominant. They've had so many first rounders in that. And then they had like guys that were backups that were just like, Hall of Famers. So, let's just take that into account. But I want to have an honorable mention. There's an honorable, I think maybe second place, you could say. All right. I saw this team in my lifetime. We all did. And I'm going to talk about the 2019-2020 LSU Tigers. All right. Shout out to my guy, Bobby Ladon. All right.
Yes, sir.
Here's the thing is that LSU defeated 7 top 10 teams. Like 7 top 10 teams. The best stats at the time by a quarterback was 5,670 passing yards and 60 touchdowns. And then Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson were hauling those touchdowns. They also both had 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns apiece. And I mean, it's insane. They single season record of 726 points. And they didn't score fewer than 36. And we're just going to talk about dominance. Okay. I mean, they kicked the crap out of teams. All right. I mean, they killed Texas, who was the 9 at the time. They didn't kill him, but it was close. And they killed Florida. I don't know. They killed Georgia in the SEC championship. They murdered Oklahoma in the semifinal, and they won convincingly against Clemson. They put points on the board, and their defense was also, we talk about defenses. Defense wins championships. That defense won that championship. But that's the only argument against LSU being like a top 3 of all time is they allowed Vanderbilt to score 38 points. But I mean it's just absolute dominance. Ed Orgeron coached the crap out of that team and didn't take no names. They beat. By the way, that number 2 Alabama team that they played at Alabama was really freaking good. And I mean, we're just.
Yeah.
That's my. Again, 0-1 Miami. That's got to be the
I'll
best
help
team
you.
of all
I'll-
time. But LSU, I mean, they're just dominant.
I'll help you out here, though. I'll add another stat to that: is they played 5 out of the top 7 defenses in the country that year, and they put an average of 38 points on them, which is pretty impressive. But I also think Miami has an advantage to a lot of these because we know a lot of these people's NFL's careers. So, like, if I'd suggest the 2018 Clemson Tigers, who was dominant itself. That's the thing. Like, I don't listen. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they're gonna have great careers.
Patrick Queen, Derek Stingley.
And Clyde. Yeah, Clyde too. Exactly. And I think that's the hard part because like with Miami, it's just like Hall of Famers galore, and I think that's like boom, easy. But I think it's just it's hard to measure that with like I don't know what's gonna happen to Mac Jones, for example, for Harp's case. But I don't know.
Mac Jones, future Hall of Famer.
And also just but I don't know.
And again, we're
because I think the 2018 Clemson team deserves a dimension as well because they were dominant.
They're definitely top 7. But I mean,
according to ESPN, they are top 7.
I mean, here's the thing, and shout out to all the people who are over 50 watching this podcast. We're young kids, and so we didn't see 1995 Nebraska. I mean, Tommy Frazier was option quarterback who was killing it. 72 USC. I'm just reading off a list, to be honest, guys. 71 Nebraska. These are all like dominant teams with dominant players who had multiple Hall of Famers on those teams. And that's why we're saying these things. And we're also looking at statistics of 0-1 Miami. We also have a fan of Miami that kind of remembers it, I guess, Ryan.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I think we should probably change the title of this question to the greatest college football team of our lifetime, because I think that there are other thing like none of us know the 1973 Notre Dame team. Like none of us are gonna know that. So like, but that doesn't get the clicks. That doesn't that's not as sexy a headline. So it's all time.
Rudy.
Well, it's also, I mean,
Rudy,
look, we are
in the national championship in 1973. Come on, man. Big facts.
Yeah, you gotta know
I know that.
I'm looking at a thing right now.
We're also very metrics based though, and like
continue
things like margin of victory and that like those things that we're looking at to assess these and offensive rating, like it's a completely different game than it was back then. So like,
of course,
teams that were dominant back then might have won games by 20 points. Like now we're like, oh, did you beat anyone by 60 in your season? You weren't the best team ever. So I think that's relevant. But also, Howard, I think what you were saying, we're going to go about, we have the ability to look back, 20 years later on Miami and see where all those players end up being. I want to talk about the Alabama recruiting class from 2017 real quick. This recruiting class, like, we might end up having more pro Hall of Famers from that team than we do from the Miami team. Like, you're really just not going to know. But their 2017 recruiting class, they had Tua and Mac Jones, who are both going to be first-round quarterbacks. They had Jalen Waddle. They had Devonta Smith. They had Jerry Jeudy. They had Henry Ruggs. Actually, I think Jalen Waddle was the next one. But the other three receivers, all that one. You talk about Landon Dickerson. He's in there. Like, if you look at there's like maybe 11 or 12 guys from that 2017 Bama class that could legitimately end up being like picks, maybe second round picks. It's unbelievable, and it's something we can maybe look back on, years from. That was just one recruiting class. If you talk about everyone on that team right now, then you can start including, Jalen Waddle, Alex Leatherwood, like really phenomenal players. So it is a good point that we have some hindsight bias with those Miami players, but talking to people who were alive at the time of the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, they were just as impressive as college kids as they ended up being in the pros. So
I can't believe Harv did throw out the 05 Longhorns.
Hey, I mean,
yeah, seriously, that is surprising.
I get that.
As impressive as Texas was, different.
Now, that Texas team's funny too, because you could definitely, again, we talk about hindsight bias. the hindsight bias of looking at that Texas roster and what those guys ended up being in the pros will tell you that they are not a top. That roster was barren.
NFL.
It was ugly.
Yeah, it is.
Hall of Famer,
College
blowing money.
football.
That's for sure.
College football Hall of Famer.
I mean, does what they do in the NFL pertain to like, are they the greatest team, or are we just looking at the 1 year they were a team in college football? I mean,
I think you got to look at just the 1 year. I think it's just the
It
1
just
year.
so happens
That's what I mean.
that Miami has all those guys that are studs in the pros, but like
Yeah.
also what they did while in college is still that impressive.
Or the
For
OU
sure.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that
teams, though.
also helps that Miami team is that you can sit there and say like, you know, like Sean Taylor, like you can sit there and name off all the names of the guys, right? But then we know them, most of them we know because we didn't necessarily see them that season growing up, but like we all saw them growing up playing in the NFL, like for the most part. Frank Gore's still playing in the NFL, so those guys you like are more recognizable names because we saw them, like we grew up with them in a sense.
No, absolutely. But hey, we'll see. We'll see what these LSU and Alabama teams do 10 years from now. We'll be able to have a little more informed conversation about it. But talking about what guys did in the pros, we are going to move to the pro game because it's the NFL playoffs. It's a special time of year. I'm excited. I thought the Super Wildcard weekend, first one ever, where we had 6 games in 2 days, was amazing. I watched nothing but football for 48 hours, and it was glorious, and it was beautiful, and it was profitable, if you will. So with that said, I want to hear about your guys' takeaways from the playoffs so far, predictions for next week. I think at the end we'll do a little picking action for the Super Bowl and stuff, but let me hear it. What are you guys thinking about the NFL playoffs?
Biggest takeaway, the slime zone is the greatest invention to modern football. Having a game on Nickelodeon is just hysterical. I thought it was, you know, it was horrible, but we weren't the audience, so I think like I would be very interested to see what like, you know, like a 7-year-old kid actually thought of that, because I think it's an interesting way to try to get like kids involved in football. When football, you know, as a kid, I remember it being, you know, kind of long, and you know, if I didn't really know what was going on, not like the most enjoyable. So I do actually think that was like an interesting thing. But as far as the actual games, I think there were a bunch of great games. It felt like this weekend everybody kind of got like a bunch of the teams that like hadn't won, or like Lamar Jackson winning his first playoff game. It felt like there were a bunch of those things that happened, and just made me like, you know, happy for those guys. It made me happy for the Bills and the Browns and, you know, Lamar, and just seeing all those guys go. The other big takeaway I had was I saw a picture towards the end of the Browns game on Twitter that was saying like, is this the end of the 2004 draft class? And, you know, it showed like Eli and Phillip Rivers and Roethlisberger, because like, you know, they could be done potentially. And the only thing I thought of was that Tom Brady was drafted 5 years before them and is still like going. Like it's just so crazy to me. And I don't see him slowing down like those guys.
And he's still so much better than those guys too.
It's mind blowing. 5 years, like those guys have been in the league for, you know, since 2004. Like it's, you know, 16 years at this point. So like it's just crazy to see that he's still going, still, you know, in the playoffs, pushing. I think he's gonna win this week, and I think he's gonna make the NFC Championship game, and like crazy stuff.
I'll follow that great point about the 04 draft up with a question for you guys, which is time for Phil and Big Ben to hang up the cleats, because watching Ben try to move this week and watching Phil try to throw a Hail Mary, was, I mean, painful as a viewer. Truly painful to watch. Should they hang it up?
Right now, all scramble.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And it's not even for me. It's not even mobility. Like, you don't have to necessarily be able to scramble. Like, Big Ben's made a long career of just not being able to be tackled, and everyone has mobility. It just takes different shapes. But Big Ben's shape of being able to at least, like Brady and Breeze, they were never scramblers, but they know how to move around the pocket to avoid getting hit.
Yeah.
Big Ben, I mean, watching him chase that fumble down on the first play of the game, I seriously thought that like my satellite was breaking up and it was in slow motion or something, because I couldn't believe that a professional athlete was moving that slow on a field.
Come on, don't be.
Like, that's not even dramatic.
Don't do
All five of his O linemen could outrun him. I guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it. So I don't know. I don't know about Phil.
I will say,
Yeah,
like, part of the question and part of like I'm gonna go back to Brady, in that I feel like Brady's broken a lot of this like thought process where these guys are too old to play. Because I mean, he's still old and he's been significantly better throughout his career, and still currently. But I think that that's kind of why you see these guys hanging around longer than maybe they should, or maybe it's just because like Brady's still playing. He's older than me. Like I feel like that's more the thought process for a lot of those guys, is like it seems like you can last longer in today's NFL than you obviously could at any other point.
That's definitely true. You can definitely last longer. Okay, what you gotta say, Howard?
So okay, this is I'll just speak to this one point and then I'll get back to like my take on playoffs and stuff. I think it's just the style of play of those quarterbacks, right? Brady has made a living staying clean and having really good offensive line, and obviously he's just better. I mean, he's the greatest of all time. I'm not trying to hate on Brady like that, but like Big Ben, like made a career off of having a bad offensive line and just gunslinging it, and so did Phillip. And those two guys are gunslingers. I mean, that's what they do. Brady can sling the ball, but like he's not like a gunslinger. You know what I mean? I think that also just plays a part of it, because I think like Big Ben is just, his body's done. Like it's clocked out. It's ready to go home. It should have retired a while ago. And Phillip, I mean, godly, everyone saw that Hail Mary. But moving on from that, all I gotta say is circle those wagons, baby. I am all
Yes, sir.
Dude,
I took a future on them before last week.
Now they can't stop the run to save a lick, and that might come for Baltimore.
They also can't run.
Man, Josh Allen's a baller. Dude, that dude makes some crazy plays. Some plays that his first touchdown pass and some of his throws on the sidelines with Stephon Diggs. I mean, he's a baller, and I think they're like they got a lot of emotion, a lot of momentum right now, and they kind of have an home field advantage with their crowd, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they do.
Hey, it's Bills Mafia.
The Bills, and secondly, and my last kind of thing is just really good to see the Browns win. See the Browns just finally get a big win after all the crap the Steelers were talking that week. It was just really good to see the Browns just stomp them in. Big Baker guy. So it was really cool. I think they'll give the Chiefs a run for their money this week too. But yeah, so those are my two big takeaways. All AFC. NFC, I don't, it was kind of a whatever. But yeah, those are my takes.
Hey, love him. Boy Dizzle, what's your taking?
My takes right now, I think I just got to agree that the Bills look good. I really like their chances this weekend, especially. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I think they're a really good contender. I hate to say it, but no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills are.
I mean, no one does. No one does.
No one does. So
It's a fact.
But I also think whoever's coming out of this Brady Breeze matchup, I mean, I think they have. I think they can go to the Super. I mean, I think the Bucs can go to the Super Bowl pretty easily right now. They're hot on offense and defense. Mike Evans, by the way, can we just talk about the resiliency? We thought he was going to be out for the next year, and he is just he played, man, and he played pretty well against the one of the best teams to make the playoffs ever, the Washington Football Team. And so I really like them. I think if Lamar really steps into his own again and plays well, then I think it's just a lot of good matchups this weekend. I think but of course you always got to think about the Chiefs. They're definitely the biggest threat in the league right now. I think, do they have the highest championship odds? I would think so.
Yeah, without looking, yes.
Yeah. So but that my takeaway right now, Lamar Jackson, if he plays a game like that, he's definitely. I mean, we could see a young quarterback duel of Chiefs Ravens maybe in the.
The Chiefs are plus 200, which is the best.
Yeah. Wow. So I really like that as well, but be very interesting this weekend. I'm definitely excited for it.
Jacob Harb.
Defense. There's 11. Excited to see what that. They're gonna have to step. I had a great. Not gonna beat the. Half the Bucks of the AB can be as of recently, AB's been a big behind wins.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to your Bills point. Actually, I think we're gonna learn a lot about the Bills this week. Knows how to win. Lamar Jackson finally got over the hump of winning his playoff game. The Ravens are arguably the hottest team in football over the last 8 or 9 weeks. And the Ravens defense is the best defense that the Bills have played since they played the Rams in like week 6. So I think, the Bills, they didn't look great against the Colts at a lot of times. The Colts made some boneheaded decisions with Frank Reich that probably ended up costing them a chance of winning that game. As much as I like the Bills this year, I think they are good. You also don't know, is Josh Allen, is he going to be this good when Daboll eventually leaves? Is he going to be this good if Ken Dorsey goes and takes an offensive coordinator job? I think if they can beat the Ravens this week and really establish themselves, I'll have some faith that the Bills are actually going to be continuing this for years to come. So I think it's a big game for them. It'd be a statement to go beat the Ravens and then head out to go play presumably Kansas City. But the last thing I want to say, you guys, there were 6 teams that won this past weekend. We've talked about the Saints. We've talked about the Bucks. We've talked about the Browns. We've talked about 5 of the 6 teams, but no one's talked about the Los Angeles Rams. I'm tired of the disrespect that the Rams are getting. Fortunately, the week before they played the Jets, I decided to say that the Rams were going to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Then they lost to the Jets, so I didn't feel great, but they're back. And I think crazy is that Sean McVay, as much credit as he got for being an offensive whiz kid when they went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, he's completely changed, I think, and he's matured a lot as a coach. And him bringing in Brandon Staley this year has been unbelievable for the Rams. Brandon Staley, by the way, should get a head coaching job. Wink, wink at our Atlanta Falcons boys. Their defense is unbelievable. And a big part of it is Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey single-handedly make great plays. But Leonard Floyd has had a career year playing on the edge. Obviously, he left Chicago, so that probably explains why. They still have Michael Brockers. They've got Johnson in the secondary. They've got Pro Bowlers all over that field right now. And I really think that their defense is actually going to give big fits to the Packers. I don't know how many points the Rams can score in Green Bay, but what I do know is that the Rams offense this year, when they're at their best, is run dominant. And I think the weather is going to stink in Green Bay, and it's going to force them to force feed Cam Akers. Whitworth is back on the left side of that line. They're going to run the ball. They're going to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands, and they're going to play great defense. And most importantly, I think they're going to have a chance. With Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, you have a chance to not eliminate, but at least somewhat neutralize Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. I don't know if they will, but they at least have a chance to do it. And the Packers are not going to be good if that's the case. So, talk about their name. They are going to cover this week.
The one thing I will say is that I like the Rams a lot. The problem I have is they're just not as healthy as some of the other teams, and I think that's what's hurt them and kind of maybe kept me from putting them in the same category as a lot of the other teams that are.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of teams have injuries right now. I mean, I know what you're saying. Aaron Donald, by the way, during the podcast, Sean McVay confirmed that he'll play and that they think he's in really good shape to play close to 100% this week. So that's big news.
Isn't Cooper Kupp injured for them?
Cooper Kupp is injured. They don't know the severity yet. They have not said if he's playing or not. Obviously, that would be a big loss. But again, I don't think they're going to win this game by airing it out to Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Wolford, who knows if he's going to play. If he does play, they shouldn't really throw the ball that much anyway. Goff clearly couldn't throw the ball with his thumb last week. He had no control over it. They just need to run the ball every once in a while. Keep the defense honest with Sean. What does Sean McVay do best, right? He runs a bunch of, play action off of their running game and gets Goff out on the move and does little dump off passes and lets guys like Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee create after the catch. So I'm not worried about the Rams. I'm really not. I think they're going to play a very competitive game. My only concern is the Rams defense tends to struggle a little bit against play action. That's an issue with Aaron Rodgers. But I don't know. I'm just saying. I think you guys have overlooked the Rams a little bit. Keep them on the radar. I think they're going to be competitive in Green Bay this week.
Yeah, really a really big win. I mean, like Seattle. Seattle beat them a couple weeks prior in a big game, and then to come back to Seattle and frankly just put the beating on them and made Russell look like bad. Like Russell Wilson looked bad last game. So yeah, that's a fair points. Fair points.
Yeah, absolutely did. But all right, well, before we move on to Fire Breach shots, I want to hear who you guys have winning AFC, NFC, and Super Bowl. So Jacob Howard, get us started.
Man, okay. So what do you want me to start? NFC or AFC?
All right, I want to hear all three. I want to hear who's playing in the Super Bowl and who's winning in the Super Bowl.
Okay, well, I meant like you want me to start AFC, NFC. Okay.
Go fine, AFC.
It's okay. All right, AFC. AFC. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. I feel like it's a safe pick. I think they're just really good this year, and they're just kind of reloaded. I'm gonna go NFC. Oh man, I don't know. I think Ryan just sold me, man. I think I'm going Rams. I think I'm going Rams in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He sold me on it. I'm in. I'm all in. I'm putting my chips. I mean, I had the Rams originally in my Super Bowl after Week 1 early predictions, so I'm gonna stay with the Rams in the NFC. So I'll keep it with that. And I'll take.
All right, then I'll go ahead.
Just take it all the way. Right.
Oh.
What the?
Ooh.
I love it.
All right,
I
you know
love
what?
it.
Howard, you and I are riding together, brother. We're going Rams over Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I'm sticking to my guns. I'm sticking to my guns.
Yeah.
We are rolling with it. Hey, you know what? We said get out of you, get out here to you. We said Miami Heat. We're gonna make the finals, and they made the finals. Howard and I were going strong. Howard, man of the clock. Come put some money on them with me. We're doing a future on the Rams. I'm excited.
Drinks on me, baby. Drinks on me.
You want to a future right now? Live on.
Live on. All right, I'm doing it right now.
Let's go.
All right.
While you're doing that, I'll go. So just so we're not all picking the Chiefs, even though I think that it's going to be a really good AFC Championship, I'm going to go the Bills over the Chiefs. I think if there is a team that could beat the Chiefs, I think it's the Bills. Just because, I feel like they're kind of similar in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously they're not Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, but like Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are no chumps. So I think that, I think that they play that game 6 times out of 10. What am I trying to say? If they play that game 10 times, 6 times the Chiefs win. I think 4 times the Bills win. So I'm gonna say that this is one of those 4 times, and then I'm gonna go. I'll go Bucks. From the NFC, I think they have a really good defense. Tom Brady, I think experience, especially with how weird everything is going to be a big factor. I love the Rams. I think the Packers are really good, but I think that I trust that team a little bit more for some reason. And there's no really real statistical reason. It's just like a gut thing. And so I'll go Bills over the Bucks in the Super Bowl.
I like it. By the way, I did just lock in. We got plus 2,400 for the Rams future.
Yep.
So Howard, we're living large, brother. Jacob Hart. I'm assuming you got the Bucks in your Super Bowl as well.
Oh, take the pass. Aaron Rodgers and Jared.
Good thing we're picking between the Rams and the Packers.
And get them. That did. But get the Bucks go. Can't stay away. I do.
Oh, like I said, I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. It's hard to pick against them.
Want to pick. And even though I don't.
The passing of the torch.
Mahomes beats Brady.
Like that.
Boy Dizzle.
AFC. I picked the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl before the season started. So I gotta stay true. I'm gonna say the Ravens.
I like it.
Handle the Bills this weekend, and then I think the Chiefs are gonna play them in the AFC Championship. But I think if Lamar is hot, they can beat any team.
Well, Lamar is afraid of snow, according to Schefter, as of 20 minutes ago. So
I don't care. I really don't.
He has never played in snow. Never.
Lamar and the Ravens.
No, I like that.
Guys, did anyone put the Packers in the Super Bowl?
No, I really thought about it, but then I just rode with Howard. I just rode with Howard.
One of the hottest offenses.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, defenses in the league. And so I'm going to go Ravens, Packers, and I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers his second Super Bowl title.
I love it. I hope he gets it. Jordan Love Revenge Tour. Greatest time of the year.
Exactly.
All right. Well, then we're going straight into fire breach shots. As if Howard and I had not already just given a pretty significant one and also financially supported that one, I'm going to go ahead and give my fire breach shot, which is this. There is a little homer here just because I think the Miami Dolphins are going to take this young fella at number 3 overall. Devontae Smith will break Jerry Rice's receiving record of 22,895 yards. Before I explain, I'd like to point out 2001 Miami Hurricane Andre Johnson is 11th in receiving yards in NFL history. Little point there, but it is a bold claim. Jerry Rice has like almost 4,000 more receiving yards than the second closest player, which is Larry Fitzgerald. Jerry Rice played until he was like 40 at receiver, which we do not really see anymore. Also, shout out to you Falcons fans. Julio Jones did crack the top 20 last year, so he's in number 20. Anyway, I think Devontae Smith. Everyone talks about will he be durable with his body shape, whatever. Marvin Harrison looked just like Devontae Smith in terms of body shape. Marvin Harrison is arguably a top 10 receiver to ever play the game. I think Devontae Smith is electric. He is an amazing route runner. His radius, like catch radius, unbelievable. Hands are phenomenal. He's blazingly fast. I think as long as he gets into a system where teams let him excel and get him the ball with space, that he is going to absolutely shred up teams in the first couple of years of his career. And honestly, I'm going to follow up this fire breach shot with another one, which is that last year's Alabama team, those 4 receivers, they're going to become the first team ever to have all 4 receivers from a team make the Pro Bowl at the next level, because I think all 4 of them are just so uber talented. We'll see about Ruggs in Las Vegas, but that's my fire breach shot. Devontae Smith gonna break Jerry Rice's record.
I like that one.
And that's a slow burn. That's a slow burn, though, man. That's gonna take a while to.
Yeah, you don't really ever have to prove you're right or wrong in that one.
Exactly. You guys will never know. Years from now, we will pop champagne when he breaks Jerry Rice's record.
Man, one of us will be dead by then. So.
Oh my gosh!
Jeez.
Hey man, listen man, I don't make the future. Just know it. All right, I'm sorry.
Ruby, what's your fire breach shot?
Well, I'm kind of recovering from that. I'm gonna go with a take that I got booed for earlier in the season, and I'm just gonna double down. But this time it's gonna be for next season. I'm gonna go Josh Allen 2021 season MVP.
Is that really a fire breach shot? Yeah, that's not a hot take.
Okay, I got laughed out of the room. At the beginning of the season
Because you based it off of 4 games. Yeah. After the season, I don't think that's really a hot take. He was the 3rd best player in football this year. So.
Yeah.
I mean,
Boo.
When you get boo.
No.
Okay.
Let's not boo the man.
Devontae Smith's not going to be anything for the Dolphins.
Okay, cry about it. You're just mad Giants can't pick high enough to actually take him. So.
I'm fine.
Game on.
Devontae Smith take is more of a fire breach shot than your actual fire breach shot. Jacob Harb.
I'm going to the podcast.
Danny Green is a bum, and I know because I definitely bet on the Rockets right before the podcast started.
That was bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
He doesn't play for them though.
Oh yeah, he did.
He
I
plays
was
for
thinking
Baylor.
Lakers.
Plays for-
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, he.
Oh.
Yes.
Danny Green. Yes, he's made 9. Who wants to take a stab at how many he's attempted other than Harb?
Yes.
21.
25.
He is taking 23s. He's taking 23s in the game. Oh my god.
Hey, man,
He's a bum.
Bro, come on.
man, 3 rings though. 3 rings though.
Jacob, what's your hot fire breach shot?
3 rings.
Sorry,
Also, he has 6 turnovers.
yeah, but anyway, fire shot.
This season?
right now.
I love it.
Listen,
Okay.
Holy crap! Now that's a hot take. See, Ruben, take notes. That's a hot take.
Okay. Yes.
Fiber
Sorry.
will be in the Western Conference Final.
I love that one, Harb. I really do. That's beautiful. All right. Who's next? Who's got some fire beat shots for us?
I think it's me, right? Will, do you have one?
I have one, but I would love for you to go first.
Oh man, thank you so much. But I want you to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. We've not talked about college basketball tonight, so I'll flip the script. This is going to be, NCAA recently announced maybe a week or two ago that, all the games are going to be in Indianapolis in that bubble. So we will see a kind of NBA-like bubble in Indianapolis across the state of Indiana, beautiful state of Indiana. And I will say this now, that a double-digit seed will be in the national championship game in March Madness. All right.
Wow.
Now I think we've seen this before.
I'm starting to get this whole hot take thing.
We have, but here's the thing: is that we've got a lot of teams that are blue bloods: Duke, Michigan State, and UNC. According to the wizard of college basketball, Joe Lunardi, are double-digit seeds right now. And of course, you never know about those mid-majors. We're talking about Liberty. We're talking about Belmont. We're talking about other teams like UAB, who's putting it in the basket lately. And we're talking about even like Furman. Shout out Jacob Harb, who's a big fan of Furman. And so,
Go Paladin.
exactly. And so, I just
Furman University Christian
we
Knights.
saw. Of course, this is different age, but kind of not really, but sort of. That the NBA bubble, we saw like guys were literally playing almost pickup basketball and scoring like 40, 50 points a night. And we saw like the Miami Heat go on their run, were shooting the lights out of the ball, and they were playing so well together. I think these experience, I don't think there's not really been a team where a lot of freshmen have won, and a lot of the top teams have those are surrounded by those like freshman type guys. I mean, you can make a case for Gonzaga, and Baylor having some vets. But if they run into a team who's shooting the lights out and they don't have to travel or get tired and anything like that, they run into a hot shooting team, like a Purdue who can get hot and cold like crazy, like let's look at Stanford. I mean, they have that stud guard. You just never know what's going to happen in this tournament. Of course, it is March Madness for a reason, but now with the bubble, I think it's going to be way better with upsets happening. And so I would not be surprised if we see even Richmond, dude. Like, if we see one of those dark horse teams make it to the national championship, like that would be awesome to see. And I actually think if any year would happen, it would be this year. So that's my hot take.
I gotta say that would be so good for the sport because
Thanks, Pastor.
I don't think it's a secret. Like, I think college basketball has really been struggling like the last couple of years. And the talent, obviously, with one and dones gets a lot like diminished to the talent. Guys don't stay in school. I hear all the time, older people like my father say, college basketball was so much better when I was a kid, whatever. I think, Will, like, if you can get a Richmond or something in the national championship, I think that would just be so good for the sport, where at least like it would have that such like unpredictable nature where any team can do it. And like that'd be really good for the sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think the other thing about it, and I'll just say this about college basketball, I'll say two things, is that let's look at the last like 10 national, ever since the one and dones became popular, which was like the first John Calipari, super team with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. I don't think I don't think a team with just like those big freshmen have won a championship. I mean, it's been experienced teams who have won it in years past. Villanova's always been experienced. That UNC team won it with guys who were juniors and seniors. And, I think there's a lot of top dogs that are experienced, that are not experienced. And so, we'll just have to wait and see, man. And plus, I think mid-major basketball should be watched way more. But yeah, that's Those are my two things. I just love college basketball. You guys know that. So here we go. Pastor, what is your hot take?
Yes, sir.
Final hot take of the night.
Yeah, this will not be. No, that was really good. So mine, as you guys know, earlier this year when the Falcons were stalling on firing Dan Quinn, I made the hot take that Joe Brady would be the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, which he is a finalist, and there's a real possibility of that happening. Which, please, put that into my system. With that being said, building off of that hot take, I think the Falcons go worst to first next season and win the NFC South. So,
yes,
deuces. That's what I think. I think it's gonna be a down year for the NFC South. The Panthers are still gonna struggle. I mean, they'll be better, but I think Panthers struggle. I think Buccaneers start sliding a little bit, and I think the Saints. I think Drew Brees retires after this year, and I think they aren't gonna be. I don't think they're gonna reload as well next season. So I think it's a down year for the NFC South. I can really see the Falcons turning around. Matt Ryan, I think it'll be Matt Ryan's last hurrah with the Falcons, I think, next year. So I think him and Joe Brady excites me. So with Joe Brady and the boys, worst to first. Thank you.
Falcons going QB.
All right.
Falcons going QB at 4.
Yes,
First
sir.
round.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. I think if you get a new GM and a new coach,
They have to. They have
I
to.
think a new GM, new coach to build around a guy, yeah. And I think Julio Jones gets traded. I think that can be another hot take, but I don't think that's really a hot take anymore.
I
I don't
like
like
hot.
inevitable because you just
Be a Ruby hot take. You know.
yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. Also, I
Man.
forgot that Danny Green last night was 0 of 9 for 7 attempts and 2 points.
King. Put some respect on his name. He's a king.
He was minus 24 last night. Just
Jeez.
leave
Put some
that there.
respect on his name.
Against the Hawks.
Boys, it's been fun. Kumbaya, I believe.
Yes.
Pray for Ruby.
Cool. Yeah.